The U-2 plane has been completely shrouded in secrecy since it was first designed in 1955. This is hardly surprising when you consider that it became one of the greatest and most famous spy planes of all time. Welcome back, Hand Axe and Satchel viewers. Today we're going to be doing a video on the U-2 aircraft. Let's start with the history and background of the U-2. The actual reason that the military decided it was necessary to design this spy plane was the Cold War. The US military realized they needed intel on the Soviet Union's military capabilities. The first prototype of the U-2 was flown in 1955, and by 1956, just 1 year later, it was operational. Since then, the U-2 has been deployed to Korea, the Balkans, Afghanistan, and Iraq. It was also notably used during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Before I get too far, I just want to go back and point out that this reconnaissance plane was designed in complete secrecy by Kelly Johnson and Lockheed. Upon learning this, my first thought was, where is the R? The R in the SR-71 Blackbird means reconnaissance, which would have been on the U-2 if it had not been such a secret project. Instead of R for reconnaissance, the US military decided to stick a U on it. U for utility. That way, rather than a threatening spy plane to look out for, the enemy thinks that the US is just building a silly utility aircraft, nothing to worry about or even take notice of. In this photo, probably the first thing to jump out at you is that oddly shaped oval on the back of the plane. That is a satellite communications system capable of collecting data beyond the line of sight and around the globe. Now, before I get to how the pilots of the U-2 are like astronauts, let me quickly give you the stats of this aircraft. The U-2 can generate 17,000 pounds of thrust, has a length of 63 feet, a height of 16 feet, a weight of 16,000 pounds, a max takeoff weight of 40,000 pounds, and a fuel capacity of 2,950 gallons, and a payload of 5,000 pounds. You might want to replay this part if that's at all interesting to you. As noted on screen, these are the important facts, the facts you will want to really pay attention to because I will be referencing them in a minute. To start, this aircraft has a wingspan of 105 feet, a ceiling of above 70,000 feet, and a range of more than 7,000 miles. Another thing to keep in mind is that this plane was not without competition. In fact, just the SR-71 Blackbird that I mentioned a few moments ago was a competitor to this plane. One interesting difference between the two is that the Blackbird had a top speed of 2,200 miles per hour, while the U-2 is almost put to shame at a top speed of only 410 miles per hour. The Blackbird actually ended up replacing the U-2. Now, as promised, on to how the pilots who flew this plane were like astronauts. Looking at this picture, their suits look remarkably similar. This is because engine flameouts were common at high altitudes, and they needed protection from cockpit depressurization. In fact, this was no small ordeal. More than a dozen U-2 pilots died. Flying at 70,000 feet was very dangerous. Another problem for the pilots of the U-2 comes when it is finally time to land. This is because the 105-foot wingspan that makes this plane great for flying and staying in the air also keeps it in the air, making it very difficult to land. Add to this that the pilot has been in that suit for up to 8 hours or more, unable to move, and that the helmets greatly obstruct natural peripheral vision. It was a recipe for disaster. To aid this, it was decided that another person would be in a car on the runway, giving feedback and helping make sure the pilot touches down safely. Subscribe if being a U-2 pilot sounds hard. Thank you for subscribing and helping my channel. Also, please watch my other video on the SR-71 Blackbird, and don't forget to check out my merch on Zazzle.com. To be fair, let's ask a U-2 pilot himself. If he does a thumbs down, don't subscribe. If he does a thumbs up, then subscribe please. That looks like a thumbs up to me. One of the coolest things about the U-2 is that it is still running to this day. That is something that cannot be said about the SR-71 Blackbird. Oh, And as for how the U-2 earned the name Dragon Lady, when the Air Force bought the U-2s from the CIA, the transaction codename was Project Dragon Lady. This stuck as a nickname. Thank you for watching. Hand Act and Satchel. Signing